This review is long overdue, since the original set that I was sent got lost in shipping. But here we are finally, with the Simgot EW300 and EW300 DSP. Now, first of all, I would like to thank Simgot for sending these IEMs in to review. Like always, I'm not being paid to review these IEMs, and I am free to critique them how I like. Okay, so the EW300 and the EW300 DSP are both tribrid IEMs at costs around $70 US. They both come with the usual set of Simgot tips, and their nicer zip-up carrying case. The shells are smaller in size, so they fit quite comfortably in my ear and balance the weight well. The left IEM has an X design on it, and the right IEM has a heart. It's a design choice that may turn some away, but I find myself not really caring about that. I used them for a couple weeks even at work, and nobody on construction sites mentioned them, which just goes to show people don't care what earphones you're using. They also include swappable nozzles to change the tuning. So what's the difference between the normal version and the DSP version, which actually costs $10 more? The most apparent differences at first glance is just the shells. The standard version has a mirror finish while the DSP version is textured and painted black. The standard version uses a similar cable to the EM6L, which is quite lightweight but still maintains a very good balance of stiffness along with flexibility. It's one of my favorite cables for just real world use, since I find it doesn't tangle very easily, but it's also light enough that it doesn't feel like it's tugging or adding extra weight to the IEMs while in the ear. The DSP version, on the other hand, uses a cable which is slightly more springy and isn't quite as flexible, but it's still pretty decent overall. The standout feature for me from the DSP cable is that they separated the DAC from the cable end. The DAC is now contained in the Y-split, so this allows the USB-C end to be a small right angle termination. I really like this setup since it seems to reduce a lot of torque that can happen from other straight USB-C connections when plugged into my phone and just being used in my pocket. So far, I think that this is my favorite USB-C cable that I've used in an IEM, which is why I end up using the DSP version quite a lot at work, even choosing to reach for it more often than the EM6L, which was normally my go-to daily driver for work. The inline controls of the DSP version is quite simple though, with just one button that lets you pause what you're listening to or skip to the next track. Overall, in terms of build and accessories, they are both quite good for the price, which is to be expected from Simgot at this point. They always seem to be one of the best in this price range for build quality, but of course, an IEM is only as good as they sound, so how do they hold up there? First of all, the EW300 all-around is a warmer set of IEMs. With the silver nozzle, they are advertised as being tuned close to Harman 2019, but that seems to be only around the ear gain region between 1 to 3 kHz. Both the standard and DSP versions lack the Harman bass tuck, and instead have a more gradual mid-bass slope, which is fine. In the low end, the standard and DSP versions are quite similar, with most of the DSP work seeming to be just cleaning up the top end and helping to remove some peaks, and also slightly improve the sub-bass. I think this is a good use of the DSP. Rather than relying on it as a crutch, they use it as a tool to help get just the last 10% of the desired tuning, while the rest of the tuning is done mostly analog. But the biggest difference in the sound really comes from the nozzles, which for me is what changes these IEMs from being just decent to one of the better options at this price range, in my opinion. I have heard some others say that they don't hear too much difference between the nozzles, but for different people, different areas may stand out to them more and may need more adjustment than others. The silver nozzle has a more pronounced ear gain region, which to my ear does limit the type of music that I can listen to with it. Other Simgot IEMs are tuned like this, and at least when they do aim for this sort of tuning, they do well to balance the mid-bass and trebles so it's not overly shouty. I do think that many would like this sort of tuning, but for me, it does sometimes limit my listening preference to avoid songs that are brighter or might have more pronounced instruments like hi-hats or stringed instruments. The DSP version does help to slightly reduce a bit of the metallic timbre at the top end, but even so, I only really like this IEM when switching to the gold nozzle. With the gold nozzle, the ear gain region is reduced quite a bit. This also has an effect of emphasizing the low end a little bit more, and lets this IEM come across just a little bit warmer overall, but I think that does balance out with the rest of the tuning of this IEM. With the gold nozzle, I don't have any areas that sound harsh or shouty to me, and I find the overall listening experience much better. Even so, while they are warmer, they still don't sound too muffled or blunted. I find it just sounds more natural and easier to escape into the music. Going through my testing playlist, there are certain songs that I have trouble enjoying when the ear gain is too emphasized. Songs like Touch by Daft Punk, Palladio by Escala, Engines of Creation by Joe Satriani, Dreams by Fleetwood Mac, or Save Your Tears by The Weeknd. These songs tend to not be very forgiving, and I find that the silver nozzle and many other IEMs tend to emphasize parts that cause me to hear them as harsh or even artificial sounding. While testing, I also listen to some binaural mixes of some music, and while in this sense it does have a decent sense of width and separation, the music still sounds artificial and shouty to me with the silver nozzle. Switching to the gold nozzle is night and day for me, where all those songs sound not only more natural to me, but also just smoother in presentation overall. The standard EW300 does seem to have a little bit of metallic timbre, but the DSP version gets rid of that for me. I think having tuning options like this on an IEM that change the ear gain region is quite important, and maybe even more important to me than tuning options that just change the bass or treble. I like what Simgot did with this IEM, and I think it suits a wider range of people, giving them options to change the ear gain. Compared to the EM6L, I do still think that the EM6L sounds a little bit better, having more pronounced upper treble and a little bit less bass. It sounds clear to me overall, while maintaining the upper mid-range that doesn't come across harsh to me and just sounds more natural timbrely. But I do think that the EW300 is maybe a better all-rounder for people, with its warmer and more relaxed presentation. I do quite like this IEM, and I almost find it easier to daily drive with the DSP version, just being able to plug it into my phone and not having to worry about dongle DACs. So overall, I do think this is a good IEM.